Way. We are back after a few weeks off, or at least Laura is back, certainly after a few weeks off here with a lot of things going on in the world. But we are back again to have a fun discussion about this Andor trailer. And let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, also known as Rocha Fett, joined as always, as I said, by Laura Kelly. Laura, how are you? How are things?
I'm getting bitch slapped by inflation on the daily, John, and I am exhausted and in need of a grilled cheese and a nap. But beyond that, I'm doing real well. I'm really excited to be back. I'm really excited to be talking about Star Wars because I need to talk about Star Wars in order to just keep my head above water. So I'm happy to be back.
I hear you. And behind you is the new book that's coming out, The Princess and the Scoundrel, right? I got my copy last week. Are you started? What's the deal?
There it is. You know, we also got the audiobook version, which has been really nice that they've been sending that out for advanced reader copies. So I started reading it. I think I read the first 3 chapters and then I switched to audio.
Okay.
Both are fantastic. It's interesting because the audiobook, they're having a woman read the Leia chapters and they're having a man read Han chapters and the Lando. I don't know exactly who all is involved in all the chapters. So far, I think I just have Han and Leia. But it's great. It's been a great read so far. I'm only probably 6 chapters in, but I'm excited to finish.
Right on. Yeah. I need to add it to my book display there behind me. It's time to put that one up. Yeah, I just got it the other day and I'm ready to jump into it this weekend for sure. But today we are jumping into the Andor trailer that dropped, the first official trailer that dropped just a few days ago. We had a teaser trailer a couple of months ago coming out. Can you believe it's been a couple of months since Star Wars Celebration? But we had that coming out there and really enjoyed a nice taste of what we were going to get from Andor. We saw it at Star Wars Celebration. The rest of you probably saw it there online. And then, boom, this official trailer dropped. 2.5 minutes. Laura, we're going to get into it. We're going to dive into it. I want to hear your initial thoughts. Just want to remind everybody who's watching us live, we want to hear your thoughts as well. So send in your Streamlabs and your Super Chats to support the Jedi Way and to give us your 2 cents on what you thought of the trailer, what you think might be happening. We're going to talk about all of that here on the show today. Remember, hit a like on this video, and if you're watching it later, leave a comment as well. But Laura Kelly, give me your vibe, your feeling. You watched the trailer even more a few times today. What are you taking away from this trailer? What's your overall thoughts about this trailer as you think about it now after having seen it so many times?
Well, I'm sure many of you know Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie. And so this trailer very much lines up with that sort of dark, gritty feeling that we get from Rogue One. We're sticking with that same vibe, and I'm 100% here for it. So I think that, you know, we've kind of only scratched the surface with this trailer. I have a feeling that it's going to follow the sort of pattern that some of the more recent Star Wars Disney Plus series have, where like all of the footage that we're getting in the trailers is from like the first third or so of the season. And the rest of it is just going to be a mystery. And I'm excited to kind of sit and watch it all together. And I'm really pumped that we're getting 3 episodes on day 1 of this show. Yeah. Very, very exciting. I knew we were going to get 2 episodes when it was first released, when we had the August 31 release date. That's now been pushed back to September 21st, which is fine. But 3 episodes in one drop, like, hell yeah. Here for that energy. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very excited. This is my kind of Star Wars. And I don't mean to exclude any other kind of Star Wars, because that's what's so great about the Star Wars franchise is that whatever you have a taste for the most part, you can find your home in certain pieces or projects that they've got within the Star Wars universe. For me, this is mine. I've always wanted a grittier, darker Star Wars, a Star Wars that kind of hangs out on the fringes. And I've seen people come back and say, well, Star Wars has never been dark and gritty. I'm like, I hate to correct you, but Alderaan lost millions of people. Luke's getting his hand cut off. Luke has to essentially try to commit patricide in certain moments. He kisses his sister. There's all kinds of darkness and weird stuff in Star Wars, for God's sake. So why not have a little grittier, ground-based approach here? And I loved what we got from this trailer. Absolutely. Look, this is definitely, as Diego's been saying in numerous interviews, this is a migrant's story. And certainly seeing him with those kind of makeshift leather shoes or cloth shoes tied with rope because they don't have shoelaces, seeing the kind of rudimentary approach to their tools that they have on this planet, and then seeing that Star Destroyer come around. It is so unsettling and exciting as well, because now we're going to get in also to some of the political intrigue, which I love here in Star Wars as well. I mean, you can You can take your trade federations. I'm not really too interested in this, but this is what I'm interested in. Seeing the machinations of going on behind the scenes, the back and forth, having Mon Mothma fighting in the halls of power while Diego and Stellan there are fighting outside with Saw coming back as well, which I thought was a great surprise. I had no idea about it. Maybe it had been rumored or whatever, but seeing him appear was absolutely a joyful situation for me, for sure. And just getting the overall vibe here, Laura, that this is going to be, like you said, connected to Rogue One, but this rebellion, but also telling the story of a kid who was stealing from the Empire, who got disenfranchised by the Empire, displaced by the Empire, and then finding a more noble cause to sacrifice himself for in the end. And that makes me very, very excited. Plus, the visuals here just are stunning, Laura. Maybe some of the best we've ever seen from the Star Wars universe. If you look at some of the shots here, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. The destroyer here above the planet, possibly Fest, of where he's from. You're seeing the Senate as well. Seeing Mon Mothma at the Senate is really incredible. And then seeing some more of the images that have come through here of seeing the Diego here all full. Look at that jacket. And then you juxtapose with this. This looks something out of Blade Runner in the daytime, which is so incredible to see. So to me, overall, just was blown away by what we got in this trailer.
Amen. And that last shot that you have there, the the cityscape is it's interesting because we saw some shots of what are clearly Coruscant in this trailer, which is very exciting.
Yes.
We haven't gotten new Coruscant like content in so long, and I'm really excited. But that almost doesn't look like Coruscant to me. That's sort of a different vibe than some of the other shots in this trailer. So there must be maybe there are 2 city planets that we're getting to visit in this show, which will be really exciting. I think, we have heard a little bit from the creators of the show that we're going to be spending a lot of time on, I think there's like a scrapyard planet, and it seems like we're going to be on that for a lot of this first season of this show. But very clearly we're spending time in other parts of the galaxy too, in Coruscant. Very, very, very exciting to be back. The political intrigue that you talked about is something I'm very excited about too. I've talked about how Mon Mothma's costumes are just like absolutely wowing me in every image and every video that we get from this series. So I'm excited to see where that goes. We're getting to see, I think I'll be curious to see what the balance is in terms of, the show is called Andor, but we're getting a lot of Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma in a lot of this footage. And I'll be curious to see how much we're seeing this sort of fighting the Empire from within, and how we're balancing that with Cassian's story, which ultimately ends, in fighting the Empire from the outside. It'll just be great to kind of see the show coming from both directions.
Well, and not just that, Luthen Rael as well, the Stellan Skarsgård's character, seeing what role he's playing here, following the long tradition of double agents within the Empire here, working for the rebellion. And certainly we have those moments with Mon Mothma when she says, as long as I stay in irritation, they won't know what I'm actually doing. And then you see Luthen Rael, what he's doing, where he's like playing the dignitary later on in the trailer. But initially he seems to be the guy who is in essence coaching, influencing, guiding, training Cassian to become a rebel, to lead a cell here against the Empire. So fascinating. And then you see his assistant say something like, you're slipping. He's like, I'm not slipping. I've just been undercover for too long, or I've forgotten where I was, or forgotten who I am. And so you see that there's also going to be some intrigue within the personal journeys of these characters in this show as well. And I wonder what role he's got to play throughout this whole series, because I think Diego said it was going to be, or Tony said it was going to be a 2-hander. It's like Diego and his crew, and then Genevieve and her crew. But Luthen Rael here is just a nice touch that may be one of the founding fathers of the rebellion that they've kind of retconned here into this series.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to sort of see him playing. He's going to be sort of our in-between man, I think, kind of bridging the gap between Mon Mothma and Cassian Andor. We'll eventually see working in the same room in those early scenes in Rogue One. So it'll be fun to see eventually. I would imagine it's in season 2, or maybe they'll overlap. I'm not thinking we're going to get a lot of Mon Mothma, Cassian Andor interaction in this first season. And I'll be really curious to see if Stellan Skarsgård, his character, survives this first season. I kind of am getting the vibe that like his job is to recruit Cassian to this cause, and then we might see his character bow out, unfortunately, in an untimely death sort of way. And
Possibly.
then we'll bring K2 in season 2, which is exciting. But I think that he's going to be a really fun character to watch. And I didn't realize, I don't think I understood like how much, I think he might be more of like one of our main characters in this
Mhm.
series, and kind of leading up to it and everything that we saw, even in the teaser, that didn't occur to me. So I'm excited that we're getting some of these, we're getting some of these big name stars. It's kind of nice that we get a lot of the like unknowns working their way into these bigger Star Wars roles. And there's quite a few people in this cast that I'm not super familiar with. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got a lot of new faces in this trailer that didn't appear in the teaser. So there's going to be a lot to learn and a lot to see. I really wish sometimes they would come out with like a visual guide for some of these shows. Like maybe we'll get there at some point with this one, but just the overall look and feel of it, you're right. Like some of these shots are absolutely beautiful, but
Yeah.
it's just got that dark feeling it's right on par with Rogue One. It's going to be a great ride.
Yeah, and you've got a separation of the empire, right? I mean, you're seeing at the opening the stuff that Andor is saying. The empire has gotten fat, which of course he said in the teaser trailer as well. But you're seeing, people who are slightly over, or people who are overweight or slightly overweight. They look either comfortable, they look soft, and then you're seeing the younger people coming through here who are, the fomenting of the rebellion. Are you a fish or are you not? So you're seeing more of the younger elements of the empire sensing that there is a rebellion growing here and trying to cut it at its roots. One of the great things that has been happening over the last few years with Star Wars, Laura, and I wonder what your thoughts on this are, is that we're starting to see we've been seeing the nuts and bolts of this situation and with the empire. And by that, I mean, they aren't just nameless villain anymore, right? We're getting to know that these are people who legitimately believe in this stuff. And we're seeing some real world connections, no matter what side of the political fence you're on. Certainly, Laura, you can connect politicians to these people in the empire and the things that they're saying and the way that they're approaching things. You're sensing a real world connection here. And as I said, Diego's been very clear that this is a migrant story, and certainly immigration has been a massive part of our narrative and political conversations, for decades, but certainly even more so now over the last few years across the world, not just here. So you're seeing a lot of these connective tissues, along with this idea that the rich fat cats aren't aware of what's actually going on and might lose it all because they're so soft and comfortable.
Exactly. And digging into some of these Imperial characters has been, I think,
Yeah.
a really rewarding experience in terms of storytelling. I mean, we got Indira Varma's backstory a little
Mhm.
bit in Kenobi, talking about how she started with the Empire and she thought that they stood for something.
Yeah.
And then to see where her character eventually ended up. I mean, even going back to Star Wars Rebels, if we see David Oyelowo's character had
Right.
started with the Empire, and if I recall, he may have been with ISB. I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
the way that his character evolved and then eventually joined the rebellion. And I think we know a lot about random characters sort of throughout the original trilogy.
Right.
Crix Madine, I think, is another one that defected from the Empire. So it's been really fun kind of stepping back and digging into some of those characters and asking the question of why and how they got
Yeah.
to where they are and what was the cause of them, eventually leaving the Empire, joining the rebellion. But I think that I really do like some of these lines that are in this trailer in particular.
Hmm.
I mean, you talked about this line of that was repeated in the teaser and in the trailer, where Cassian's basically just like, they're so fat and satisfied and they can't imagine someone like me sneaking in.
Yeah.
It's during, I think when he says that, there's like two characters that are like like synchronously drinking their
Yeah.
drinks, and I'm like, that was very choreographed. Well done, everybody. We were right in sync with each other. But it's just a
Yeah.
really great, I think, juxtaposition what we're going to see with some of these like refugee like characters in Star Wars,
Yeah.
juxtaposed with all of these, fat cats in the Empire.
Well, also another part of this is what Luthen says in the trailer, and you've got it written down here, Cash. He says, "Cassian Andor, the Empire is choking us so slowly, we're starting not to notice." I think that's an incredible line. It's a philosophical line about the fact that once you start to see that you are in a situation where an occupying force is controlling your life, controlling your country or your planet or what have you, it's a slow build to their control So you start to, as human beings do, just assimilate and try to get along. And the thing is, you start to become apathetic because you start to get used to this way of life. And your way of life was already unsettled when the Empire came in. Now the Empire's really put their stamp on your planet or on your city or on your country, whatever it may be. And so you just to exist, just to coexist, just to function, just to pay bills, just to eat, just to live. You come to terms with it so you can function. And I love this line saying this, people starting not to notice that is a shot at the apathy that can sometimes happen. That makes it harder for you to fight back. We're seeing nowadays people are like, oh, I'm so exhausted about politics. I don't want to talk about politics. But like, no, this is the time where you have to, because that's what they want you to do. They want you to be exhausted, so you're apathetic and you don't fight back. And that's, I think, a really powerful line to hear from him. And then following it up by saying, wouldn't you rather give it all to something real? And I need all the heroes I can get. So certainly there's a lot of weight to just that section of lines, Laura, that speaks volumes about this situation. And we're seeing much more than just, let's go beat them, guys. It's much deeper. It's much darker. It's much more, there's more cost to what they're doing here, more stakes. And I like that that's coming through in this trailer.
Exactly. I really like the real world sort of connections that they're making with this. And, I work in finance, and it kind of made me, that immediately made me think of, my sort of day job when I'm, looking around and realizing, like the fight for like the middle class in this country, we are very slowly over the last like 30 years have been losing. I mean, look at all the people who are millennials and younger who will like probably never be able to afford a house because we slowly let this, thing slip away from us. So, when you're looking at how they're attacking, from inside the house and from outside in this show, there's so many real world applications to something like that where like people really do need to stand up and start fighting for what they believe in. Otherwise, we're all going to end up in this same situation, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum. Like, you have to agree that the middle class in this country is not what it used to be. So it was an interesting sort of eye-opening thing actually to watch part of this trailer for me, which I really appreciated. And I think that I'll be really curious to see how much they kind of lean into some of those things in this show, and then kind of just see some of the fan reaction. I mean, you're already seeing it, some of the backlash against this trailer, what a certain side of the fandom are saying, where you've got obviously a richly diverse cast at the forefront of this show. And to already be seeing the backlash against it, I'm just like, I shouldn't be surprised. I'm not, but I am, because I'm like, the show's not even out yet. Like, come on. But yeah, that's where we are,
That's fair. That's fair. Let's hit some of these Streamlabs and Super Chats that have come through here. Travis Earl says, I say this with love as a lifelong fan, but live action Star Wars' most glaring weakness has been dialogue. Is it just me, or was the dialogue in this trailer conspicuously great? I'm excited to see the writer of the Bourne trilogy tackle this franchise. Yeah, I mean, Tony Gilroy coming in as a director and a producer here for this series, but also the writing here, as we just stressed some of the lines in the trailer here, Laura, certainly the writing feels a lot deeper here, a lot more resonant, as you were saying, applying to the middle class or others. And that kind of works here so well to convey what the overall scope of this show is going to be.
Exactly. And I think that, that's a really good point. I think the writing in this trailer, it really stood out, and it really made me like, it got me more excited than I think anything else that I've ever seen in a Star Wars trailer, at least for some of these Disney Plus series. Like that intrigue that it creates. Like, I'm just so excited to see where it goes. And I'm not sure if we have all the information of exactly who wrote every episode or who all the writing team is. I know, quite a few of them for this series, but it's obviously they've got a crack team working on it, because the trailer alone was mind-blowing.
What I'm looking at IMDb, I have Tony Gilroy, obviously, as he's written 5 of the episodes. Dan Gilroy has written 3 of the episodes. Bo Willimon has written 3 of the episodes. And Stephen Schiff, who was an executive producer on The Americans, has written one of the episodes as well. So Bo Willman is a young writer here. He's I haven't seen too many
House of
things.
Cards, I think, is
Oh,
where
okay,
where
House of
he's
Cards
from.
there for him as a writer. Yeah, fair enough. So there you go. I mean, those are very House of Cards, The Ides of March, Mary Queen of Scots. So certainly political intrigue, nothing new to Bo Willimon as a writer. So bringing that kind of knowledge and that kind of talent to bear here, I think, is great as well. And Dan Gilroy writing through the episodes, obviously connected in that way, working on Nightcrawler, working on Roman J. Israel, working on the Bourne Legacy. So more intrigue there, more of a spy approach, more of an espionage approach there, and also more of a darker approach when you look at Nightcrawler, certainly in exploring the uglier sides of what human beings or people or species are willing to do in order to maintain the status quo or keep their money or keep their status. So it's just lovely to see so many talented people involved on the writing side. And Laura, you mentioned here that Tony Gilroy talked about it in terms of directors as well, that each director is directing a block of 3 episodes. So that's with Toby Haynes leading the way here, but Susanna White, Ben Karen. So that's a number. I love that you're getting cohesiveness in blocks of these episodes so that we can connect with one particular storyline or threads of the storylines that are happening and have it be cohesive over 3 episodes. And then we move on to a new block, almost like chapters within the story, Laura.
Exactly. And I think that's definitely what they're going for in season 2, when I think each of those blocks is going to be like a year in the rebellion. I don't know if it's going to span a year, but it's going to take place in one given year as they work their way up to the Rogue One timeline. But Toby Haynes, I think, he's been, I think, credited as the lead director on this series. So I would be surprised if he's not directing the first block of 3. I would guess that he's going to be the one sort of setting the tone for this show. And I think he also was the one who had to sort of step in as showrunner when COVID hit and Tony Gilroy couldn't come over to the UK from America because of all of the COVID restrictions. So a lot landed on Toby Haynes, I think, leading up to this. Ben Karen, I think, had some experience on The Crown, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Susanna White is not one Susanna White is not one that I'm familiar with, but I think that this is, and it's actually not clear who the 4th director is. Like, I would think it would be Tony Gilroy, but if he wasn't there for a lot of the filming, like maybe he made it there later. I'm not sure. I couldn't find the information anywhere, so it's not totally clear.
Yeah, Susanna has no credits on IMDb aside from Andor, so she may be a new director coming in to kind of give her point of view, give her analysis, or give her her talent to this project. To see what she can do. Certainly bringing a female to direct, I think, is essential and important in all the Star Wars shows, to have a female point of view, which has been sorely lacking for quite some time throughout Star Wars. So it's nice to see that be integrated more and more here into all the series and the movies that are coming up for sure at some point down the road. Let's hit some more of these here, Laura. Ronan Unchained says, Buenos dias, John and Laura. Andor hits those espionage / noir / thriller vibes that I love. There's also journalism in Star Wars. Hope we get that in this show, like All the President's Men. Can't wait to see Genevieve O'Reilly give us more of Mon Mothma. Yeah, interesting. Could we see some sort of, journalism involved in this situation? Some kind of exposition or expose that reveals the corruption within the Empire and turns more people against the Empire and gives more numbers to the rebellion.
That's a really interesting thought, the journalism point of view, because we really have not gotten a ton of that in Star Wars, or at least not like on screen. I think we got a little bit in like the Aftermath trilogy in the books, and then the High Republic, the Rising Storm. One of the main characters, I think, in that was a reporter, and it was really sort of interesting watching her. Through the entire story, we see her start to finish endure the entire disaster. So it would be kind of fun, I think, to sort of get that point of view. I mean, there's so many of these characters in these trailers that we just get like a real quick shot and then they're gone. So who knows? I'm like, they could be playing anyone. It'll be really fun, I think, to see where it goes.
I agree. Ronaldo McWhiskey says, yes, the Jedi Way is back. Love you guys' show. Oh, thanks, Ronaldo. That's very kind of you.
Thank you.
He says, definitely looking forward to the political intrigue, but complicated. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, complicated. Well, I mean, over 12 episodes, Laura, you would argue, especially with the people, as we just mentioned, directing wise and writing wise involved, they understand how to tell a political story, an espionage story here over a number of episodes. So this seems to bode well. And do you want to see a complicated story after we got not such a complicated story in Book of Boba Fett or in Obi-Wan Kenobi? This one feels like it's going to be a bit more of the grayer area of Star Wars.
Exactly. Yeah, there's not a lot of room for, what's happening in politics in the greater galaxy in those shows,
Yeah,
but I think the fact that we'll probably be spending a lot of time sort of figuring out where exactly we are. I mean, we're only 5 years before A New Hope in this
right.
setting, obviously we're going to be doing some flashbacks. We see a younger Cassian appear quite a bit in this trailer, but for the most part, we're going to be setting, the Empire's been in place for about 15 years at this point. So they're pretty well established. But I
Yeah,
think kind of getting some of those flashbacks and going back to like maybe when Cassian was first displaced when he was on Fest with his family, and then where he ended
yeah,
up from there, and how the Empire came in and drove out all of the native people of this planet, and so they could insert their own political leaders in place.
yeah.
I think that this will be really kind of fun to get to watch that build up to what we knew the Empire would eventually become.
Yeah, and Diego Luna, in an interview with Den of Geek, talked about that, the possibility that he's not necessarily from Fest, that Fest is one of the planets he was a part of. He says it's difficult to find out where he comes from, referencing Cassian, because obviously he's been forced to move. And today, the story of a refugee is a story that is very pertinent to the world and where we find it. It's so difficult to find yourself in a place where people aren't coming from somewhere else, right? This idea that, hey, we all have to kind of negotiate that situation. And this idea that he's just from one planet, we've seen that, unfortunately, in our world now, as people get migrated around because of changing political situations or coups or what have you in certain countries, people are constantly moved from, or what we're seeing in the Ukraine going on now, some of these refugees going to other countries, European countries at young ages. Will they stay there, or will they have to be forced to go to another country down the road? So certainly as a young child being moved from place to place is something that's not out of the realm of the possibility when you're dealing with the Empire and their ability to occupy and use people and use the native people there for their benefit and for their usage.
Exactly. And I think that when you're talking about a story of refugees and you're kind of bringing in the real world aspects, it makes me kind of think of that. I remember what happened in the Ukraine in really early days of the war, when there were
Right.
people having to make their way to other countries, and there were people coming to the train station and showing up and being like, I have room for 3 people at my apartment,
Right.
I have a bed that I can share. And I hope that they bring something like that maybe into the show, just so that we can convey that sort of sense of hope and
Yeah.
keep that in Star Wars. I think we're going to get that. Diego Luna has been doing a lot of press lately, and he's talked about all of the things that this show is going to be. And he did mention, hope is included in this. It's sad and
Yeah.
it's war and it's awful, but there's always going to be an aspect of hope, because there has to be in Star Wars. That's what it
Yeah.
is. So that's what
Yeah.
that I hope that we'll get to see some of that play out, and it's not all just dark nitty gritty.
No, I think you're right. I think there will be, and there has to be, because that's what motivates you to keep going, motivates you to keep fighting, is the hope that there's a better future, a brighter future coming if you're successful in what you're doing. So that's certainly has to be there as a driving force, for sure. But let's take a quick segue to something that was really surprising that we got in the trailer, Laura Kelly, and that was SAW Gerrera. Let's talk about this.
Yep.
SAW Gerrera, the connections to the Clone Wars. We're seeing a SAW Gerrera that we did not see in Rogue One. So we're seeing a SAW Gerrera that's a little bit younger, before all the physical maladies that have visited him when he shows up in Rogue One happens. So this is still a warrior, a guy. He was one of the first people in the rebellion that we saw in Clone Wars who was like, no, man, we're gonna do this guerrilla style, and we're gonna go and treat the Empire the way they've been treating us. One of the first ones to kind of start that narrative and be a representative of that. So to see him here, were you surprised by it, and are you excited by it?
You know, I think Stellan Skarsgård may have revealed in an interview before he was supposed to that Saw Gerrera was going to be in this. He did mention that he had scenes with Forrest Whitaker, which is really funny. But I think that getting to see this sort of younger Saw is really exciting. It's probably
Yeah.
going to be not quite as broken, maybe a little bit more energetic. I don't think we're going to see any of Jin. I'm pretty sure that's out of the realm of possibility.
You
I think
think?
she says in Rogue One that she was
Yeah.
16 when he left
Right.
her behind, and she's 21 when she dies. So yeah, so we're beyond that timeline. But we know where Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma ended up at odds by the time we get to season 3 or 4 of Star Wars Rebels, where they're
Right.
very much in disagreement about how to handle what's happening with the Empire and how to balance out what's happening with the rebellion. And you see the lengths that Saw Gerrera is willing to go to get, to do what he thinks is right. And I
Yeah.
think kind of getting some of those earlier days of the partisans and seeing how cruel they really can be in their effort to fight back is going to be really interesting, and maybe make some people even kind of question Saw's motives and question some of his actions too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that exchange with Luthen there is for the greater good. Saw says, Luthen says, "Call it what you will," and Saw almost with an how can I say this, with an angry joy says, "Let's call it war." So you're
Yes.
seeing that he's still very much the hardened veteran soldier who probably is very frustrated that more people on the higher end scale with Luthen and Mon Mothma, as you said in season 3 in Clone Wars and beyond, don't approve of his tactics or don't assist him or don't help him fully to carry out his version of it, because in his mind, his version, his way of doing it will bring about the end of the Empire more quickly for his point of view. So, but he's a necessary evil, it seems like, when it's necessary for them, and Luthen seems to have no problem with that. And I wonder about your story, the timing here, because this is 5 years, right? The 2 seasons are 5 years, so this might be just after Jin has left his crew of people. So it could be curious to see if Felicity Jones has a quick cameo, maybe rejects Luthen's desire to recruit her, or if, as you said, we've kind of moved past her being there. And so this is before they get to Jeddah, but still kind of building towards that end result, which is where we find them in Rogue One. So really curious to see how this crew is going to come out and their role that they're going to play in this series.
Exactly. I think I'll be surprised if she shows up, to be
Yeah,
honest. Although I say
yeah.
that, and Diego Luna is 42, playing a
Right.
21-year-old is how old he's supposed to be, 5 years before Rogue
Yeah.
One. And we're flashing back further than that, and we'll get to see a younger actor playing young Cassian. But I think we're all going to be flashing back even farther back than 5 years. So this 42-year-old man's going to be playing a perhaps early 20s, like
Yeah.
late teens version of him. I'm good for him. I think he can rock it with that clean shaven look that he's got
Yeah.
through
He's got
different
a
parts of
baby
this
face.
trailer. So he
Yeah,
does. He really does. And lucky him. I continue to rock it as long as you can, Diego Luna. Be grateful for it.
For sure, for sure. Do you think we'll see as the Saw Gerrera as a recurring character throughout the 2 seasons, Laura? Do you think we'll see his body slowly start to fall apart, him becoming, in essence, almost a mirror of Vader, and maybe as a lesson showing that the pursuit of vengeance is what ends up tearing his body apart, just like it tore Vader's apart or Anakin's body apart in his pursuit for vengeance? An angry pursuit of vengeance, I guess I should say, maybe as a lesson here, as you talk about, the grittiness, the darkness being balanced out by there having to be hope. You can also look at Saw Gerrera as almost as a example of what can happen if you pursue at all costs, let it consume you at all costs, to where you become an embittered, angry, frustrated warrior here, hiding out in your cave on Jeddah, in your hideout on Jeddah.
Exactly. Yeah, Mon Mothma refers to him as an in Rogue One, and I think that we're going to get a lot of evidence in this show as to why she believes that to be the case. And I think that, you know, maybe we'll see some of his violence sort of evolve in this, but I mean, even going back to Clone Wars, he was a pretty violent guy. And I can't remember, but I know he makes an appearance in Rebels, and I don't think he has like the prosthetic limbs in that in those scenes yet. So like whatever happens to his legs and his feet happens like in that year or whatever between the end of Rebels and Rogue One. Some real bad stuff goes down with him, but I think we will probably see some of it kind of leading up to that. We just won't see the full lengths that it'll go, except maybe in the very end of season 2. You never know. Hopefully Forrest Whitaker sticks around. I mean, I feel like I remember reading how much he liked this character and how excited he was to play it. And then, you know, he didn't get a ton of screen time in Rogue One. So the fact that he's now getting to come back, and he got to come back and voice the character in animation and kind of dig a little deeper and see where else we can take this character is really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I didn't understand the backlash against him. I loved him in Rogue One, and I didn't mind, the imitations. I didn't care. I bought it.
I didn't either. Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah, exactly. You come to take me, and so I'm like, cool, let's do it. So getting him to come back and do it in a younger version, I think people are going to fall in love with this character all over again if Forrest gets more screen time to show what he can do with this character. So that's going to be great to see for sure. A Twin Paradox donated here. He says, I'm excited that this is a non-Skywalker, non-main character story. If Andor really hits with the fans, I'm hoping this gives Lucasfilm the confidence to start exploring new stories with non-legacy characters outside of just books and comics. Yeah, that's a great point that A Twin Paradox brings up here, Laura. What are your thoughts on this point of view?
I mean, I guess it's hard to call Cassian a legacy character because, you know, he was only in the one movie that didn't, you know, one of our very short anthology movies. And I really am hoping that this ends up being successful and that, you know, we get that Lucasfilm and Disney gets that lesson from this show, that you can have a successful series that doesn't have to evolve around a legacy character. I mean, I talk about it death. I love the books because I love that we're sort of exploring characters outside of the Skywalkers, and especially in things like the High Republic where you're so far back that we're not even thinking about the Skywalkers yet at that point. It's just really, really interesting. I mean, it'll be fun to see if, like, I guess, you know, Ahsoka being in the Clone Wars for so many years, definitely a legacy character, but I'm trying to think if there are any other shows coming up that kind of don't revolve around
the disciple,
one of those characters.
The Acolyte, right? Oh no, right. Wouldn't that be something different? And is Rebel Squadron that'd be something different if that ever gets off the ground again? Pun intended. That's another one too.
Yeah, that one. I'm trying to remember exactly when Squadrons was supposed to like take place. I feel like it was. I truly don't remember, but you're right. The Acolyte is one that I think will be, you know, when we're set still 150-ish years before probably the Phantom Menace or so, like we've got some distance still.
Even Rangers of the New Republic could have been something that didn't necessarily deal with any of the legacy characters. It could have just maybe an occasional appearance, but certainly not driven by them if that would have also gotten the go ahead as well. So, Star Wars doesn't seem to be hesitant in moving in those directions. They just have to create characters that people gravitate to and want to see go in that direction. Look, the Mandalorian is not Boba Fett. Baby Yoda is not Yoda. So Grogu is not Yoda. So in a way, the Mandalorian kind of qualifies, even though it's existing within the Skywalker canonical time, or Luke Skywalker canonical time. It doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't qualify for the fact that it's not a legacy character, not a main character there that is part of the original trilogy. So that makes it different in its, or even the sequel trilogy or the prequel trilogy. So that makes it different in its own approach. So I appreciate that for sure. So I think they just wait for the right things to come along and they want that to take off. I feel like Kathleen does not want to stay in the Skywalker universe too much. I think she wants to create new stuff because you can franchise the new stuff, make more money, make more films, make more TV shows, write more books and comics off the new stuff when you create new characters. Ahsoka is a great example of that, from where she went to where she is now. So why not repeat that and hopefully with Cassian that happens big time. Do you anticipate? We're talking about Rogue One. We mentioned Jen. Do you anticipate that we will see the temple, the temple on Jeddah? Do we see Baze Malbus? Do we see Chirrut Imwe? Do we see younger versions? Do we see those actors come back and maybe a little slight de-aging on both of them to see them before the bitterness and the anger consumed Baze, and a little bit more of the and before the questioning of his faith was there for Chirrut Imwe?
Exactly. I mean, that the idea of getting a sort of more monk-like interpretation of Baze
Yeah.
Malbus is so mind-bending. I can't picture it at all, but it would be really cool. It'd be really cool. It'd be really interesting to see these two characters and dive a little bit deeper into them. Rogue One novelization does a good job of that, but we didn't get a ton of that playing out on screens. Be curious to see some of that actually come to life. That's a really good idea. Actually, I kind of do hope that eventually, even if it's not in this season, maybe eventually we do get to Jeddah. It wasn't clear to me if the partisans are already on a base on Jeddah. I'm not sure if it did kind of look like a sandy area, but not clear at all.
It could go either way, which I like. So we're going to discover that as the series starts. And I know some of my colleagues have already gotten some of the episodes because they're working the press conference for this, which I think is on Friday. So, or maybe it may have already happened. I don't know. I haven't checked in with them, but I'm hoping to somehow get access to those episodes by this weekend. And so I'm just crossing
I'm just hoping that there aren't leaks. I want to be surprised. So all of you press that are special and getting in earlier, zip it.
Well, let's move on to the Empire side of things here, Laura. We mentioned the younger characters that we saw in the trailer here. Certainly, Deidre Miro is in this, and the other gentleman here, Sergeant Linus Mosk, as well, with those lines. There's fomenting here, sir. Pockets of fomenting. I love that. That's a great line. Nobody uses fomenting anymore. I love to use that word. So I'm excited that it's in this thing. But certainly Deidre Miro, who the actress, Denise Goff, I think is her name. I saw her in Under the Banner of Heaven. She was fantastic in Under the Banner of Heaven. And if you guys haven't seen that on Hulu, you need to. Another great Andrew Garfield performance as well. But yeah, we're seeing these kind of younger characters. What do you anticipate from this? Do you think this is another double agent, or do you think this is one that's very clearly going to be on the side of the Empire and going after Cassian, maybe even exposing what Mon Mothma is doing?
We certainly spend a lot of time on her in the trailer. She gets a lot of screen time in this one. So it leads me to think that maybe she is headed for like a redemption turn at some point, be it season 1 or season 2. We've seen a couple of these, white uniform ISB characters go that way. So I think it would be fun to sort of watch that play out. The thing that I couldn't stop focusing on in some of her scenes was she is very short. I had to look up her height. She's like 5'5", and like standing in relation to like where the other people are height-wise, I'm just like, oh my goodness, she's very small. But I'm excited to see what direction we go with her character. Not every Imperial needs to have a redemption story. I get it. I don't have to see it. But when they linger on characters in that way, and the trailer, the way that they do with her, I do suspect that that's maybe what's coming for her.
Yeah, I mean, there's already a biography of her up on the Star Wars fandom site. Deidre Miro was a supervisor of the Galactic Empire Security Bureau, and they just basically write down what happens in the trailer. She was escorted by a pair of death troopers as she descended from a Lambda-class T-4A shuttle that had landed at an Imperial facility on a stormy night. And then she's walking through the hallways of an Imperial facility with a lower-ranking officer in tow. So there's more here for her, for sure. And I think they are absolutely focusing on her to be one of these people that is not going to be redeemed, in my opinion. You got to have a villain. You got to have a villain. And she is so good in this trailer, conveying that kind of evil there from the Empire that I really like, for sure. And she has 3 blue squares on her rank insignia plaque, as well as a pair of code cylinders. So yeah, there you go. So we shall see what part she plays. What do you think of Linus Mosk here? Do you think there's anything to take from this? Is he a bit of a goof? Is he legitimately someone they should be worried about? Or is he going to be comic relief? What do you anticipate from what you've seen from Linus Mosk in the trailer?
Well, we didn't see much, but he's got
Yeah.
A+ vocabulary, so I applaud him for that. I have a feeling, we saw some of those blue uniforms that he's got on. We
Oh,
saw
yeah.
that show up, I think, kind of a few times. At one point, one of the character who's getting held up at gunpoint, the character behind her that's holding the gun is wearing one of those blue uniforms. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is Imperial, because really the thing actually in that scene where one of the characters being held up at gunpoint, I noticed that the character behind her, even though he's blurry, he has facial hair. And I think
Yeah.
Linus Mosk maybe did too. And I think that's a no-no in the Empire. So I think most of the time we're getting very clean-shaven individuals. So it makes me think they're maybe not Imperial. Maybe there's some other sort of force in this story. Not sure.
Well, shout out to shout out to that character coming in, because I like that it's you're not sure where he fits in all this, so it adds a little bit more of the mystery for sure, and what we're going to see here in this film for sure. We got another Stan Hepfield came in. Thank you, Stan. Says Stan the man here, Andor. I cannot wait. I just happened to catch you guys by luck. What is your schedule for TJW? Don't want to miss a show. Oh, the Jedi Way. We usually do it every 2 weeks with Star Wars Celebration, and Laura had some surgery that happened, so we had to kind of put it a little bit, kind of figure out the timing of it all. So it was a bit thrown off, but normally we try to do it every 2 weeks, usually on a Wednesday or Thursday, sometimes live, sometimes not, depending on our schedules. But yes, that's the schedule going forward, and I try to announce it on the social media as soon as we lock down a time and a date for sure. So keep a watch on my social media and on Laura's social media as well, Stan. And Stan comes back again. Says, Stan the man here again. I forgot to mention that I'm loving the diversity in Star Wars right now. When I saw SAW GERRERA, I almost passed out from happiness. You and Laura are awesome. Oh, thank you, Stan. Laura,
Thank you, Stan the man.
Yes, thank you, Stan the man. Yeah, Laura, thoughts on the diversity in Star Wars? Certainly, as you said earlier, some people were complaining about it, but hell, I love it. It's a nice mix. It's a realistic mix, which I really enjoy seeing here in Star Wars, and having having a series led here by a Latino actor in Diego Luna, I think excites me, especially when we just got that terrible news about Batgirl and the terrible news about the Gordita Chronicles. Seeing a positive trailer with that the franchise and the studio is behind an excited showcase with a Latin lead, I think makes me very excited for sure. What do you think about the diversity within the cast and in Star Wars in general right now?
You use the word realistic, and I think that's the perfect term for it. It's about time that Star Wars started looking more like the world around us. So I'm excited to see, that we're putting more effort into that, into getting faces of color on screen. We certainly got a lot of it in this trailer, so I hope that continues and plays out throughout the show and wasn't just for show. In our 2.5 minute long trailer, and even in, I guess, we kind of got it in the teaser too. So
yes,
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be curious to see where we end up in terms of like constantly having every character be heterosexual in Star Wars. It'd be nice if we're going to dive into some of them to see a little bit of diversity in that aspect of things. So that's I'm fingers crossed for that. But I think you're right. Realistic is the way to go with this.
Yeah, and having that be a part of Star Wars is also realistic. So what you just mentioned, Laura. So I think we've seen the Disney and the animation moving in that direction. I would not be surprised to see Star Wars following suit as well under the Disney umbrella, and start to see more of those characters showing up here in Star Wars and in the Star Wars franchise, or properties rather, in what they're putting across. Ronaldo says Mexico City accents are now canon. Absolutely.
Damn right.
Absolutely. If Boston accents can be canon, then damn it, Mexico City accents can be canon for sure. Tushka says, where are the natives? We showed it at the beginning here. Certainly at the opening here. I'm imagining that might be Cassian's dad, or I can't tell, or maybe a member of the tribe there. We certainly see people there using their tools at the time. So certainly the natives are going to be a part of this in strong ways, in telling the story here, as Diego said, from the migrant point of view, or seeing the migrant story here. A migrant story, I think, is going to be very essential for sure, Toshka. So just wanted to answer your question there. I know as a Native American, I wanted to answer your question for sure. All right, well, let's move on to something else here within the trailer. Laura, this well hinted at just with her crying, but we've seen a little bit more here of some of the characters going to be popping up, and certainly Fiona Shaw's character, I think, is going to be a question that we have, like, where is her place? Marva, where is her place in all of this? What is her role in all of this? And she's a human female. She said in an interview that her house is built out of old ship parts. So what do you anticipate the role she is going to play here in Andor, from what you've seen in the trailer or from what you've might have read in doing some research for this show?
I think it'll be fun to sort of see her maybe playing like in one of the original kind of overseers of the rebellion. I mean, she had that final line in the teaser, saying this is what a reckoning sounds like, or something
Yeah.
along those lines. And, it'll be really fun to actually see her get to do something different, at least from my point of view. I've not seen Fiona Shaw in a lot of things outside of Harry Potter. So
wow.
that was obviously a very surface level role. So to get her to get to see her doing more in this show, I think is going to be great. I hope that this is like more of a major character than they're kind of making it seem in the trailer. She doesn't have a ton of screen time in the trailer. But yeah, when she was Fiona Shaw was talking, I think, to Empire magazine about how there's a lot more use of practical effects in prop work in this series, more so than some of the other Disney Plus series that are depending on the volume and the stagecraft technology quite a bit. There wasn't a ton. They did a lot of shooting in exteriors, partially because I think we're filming during COVID primarily, but the fact that we also didn't bring that stagecraft technology over, and they had to sort of rely a lot more on the beautiful Scottish Highlands that we get at one point early in the trailer and some of this outdoor stuff. It's great. And she said it was, really refreshing to be able to like be in her character's home that's made out of all these old ship parts and have so much of it sort of be practical right in front of her. To get to see it and be in a real place was refreshing.
Yeah, but we also see some of the cleaner looks. I mean, Laura, this is some of the most beautiful shots of Star Wars I've ever seen. Not just the shots out in the space battles that we get, certainly when Stellan Skarsgård is fighting those TIE fighters, but here, these little moments. I mean, this almost looks like a star chamber for you people old enough to remember the 1980s movie with Michael Douglas, but also has shades of George Lucas's THX 1138. The white is so bright here. This idea that there's these people are sitting around a table and making decisions. It looks to be an all-male crew here making these decisions as well, adding a little more menace to that, as we've seen in our real world lives sometimes. We've seen images just like this, deciding the fate of people, or deciding making decisions for other people. So I think there's also a power in that, and the look of it is just incredible in showing the richness of the Empire at that time.
Exactly. That sort of rich, stark white, scenery that we're getting in a lot of these, focusing on the Empire, I think is going to be very indicative of sort of what the place of power is for this Empire at this point. We saw so much of it from the Rebels' point of view in the original trilogy, but to actually spend a little bit of time in this series, like in the settings of with more of these Imperials, I think is going to be really fun. We got the one scene, in A New Hope, where they're at the conference table and Mahdi's getting choked by Vader. Like, let's get a different sort of side of this. I'll be interested to see how much time we actually spend with that, but I'm excited that we're getting more of those series. I mean, especially like when we were on Coruscant, you saw the Senate pods, that sort of sweeping shot over it, and it had the big Imperial symbol in the middle. I was just like, mind blown. Everything in this trailer looks so great. I can't wait.
Yeah, I was trying to get a shot of that. I wasn't able. This is the closest I got a shot of the Senate here. But you're right. From the God's eye view of it all, looked incredible to see it again. I actually totally DiCaprio marked out for that one when that scene popped up, because I may not like a lot of the prequels, and I don't, but certainly there are some images or some visuals in the prequel films that I thoroughly enjoy. And the Senate, I thought, was one of the best representations on screen of something like that you'd heard about or read about, and then when you saw it on screen, it was like, oh, this is pretty badass. So I love that it's making a comeback here in some way in the show. and I wonder how extensive that the scenes are going to be in the Senate, how much we're going to get in the halls, and how much more we're going to see of an installation like that for sure. But let's move on. I don't. What character is this? What do you anticipate is going on here, Laura, for this character? What do you think is going on here for this guy?
That is Qyburn. That's the character he is playing in Star Wars. It's just going to be the Star Wars version of Qyburn. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm excited to see this actor back, but I really could not make any guesses. Besides, he's clearly an Imperial ISB guy. I'm not too sure what we're going to get from him. I think he has been talked about as one of the, this actor is appearing in Cassian Andor, which makes me think like maybe he's going to be one of the bigger characters, but he certainly didn't get a ton of screen time in the trailer. So I don't have a whole lot of guesses to go off of. What about you?
Yeah, I would say that he's probably the main person in charge of this particular area. He's the Orson Krennic of this particular area. And so clearly someone is above him, as someone was above Orson, Grand Moff Tarkin there. So I wouldn't be surprised that he is essentially in charge of this area or this installation or this situation, the city that this rebellion is going to happen, this attack from Cassian and his crew there are going to carry out. It is going to be at the frustrated expense of the character that he is playing, that Qyburn is playing. That's a great reference. And of course, bleeding down to his underlings as well. And so that I think that's what the purpose he's going to serve, because he can be quite evil. And certainly there are connective tissues with him and Grand Moff Tarkin. Old British white dudes is a staple of Star Wars. Being in evil positions is a staple of Star Wars. So Qyburn is this actor. I can't remember his name. Sorry. He's the next one to kind of follow that forward here. Sorry about that. I apologize that I don't have his name in front of me as an actor.
I don't either. It's fine.
Yeah. Sorry. Anton Lesser. That's his name. Anton Lesser. So what Anton Lesser is playing here, I would imagine, is carrying on the tradition of Orson Krennic and Grand Moff Tarkin in a way there. So that's going to be fun to see, because I like him bringing in that, as you said, that already known kind of evilness that he has from Game of Thrones into this. It does the work for you if you've seen Game of Thrones for sure. Oh, and on a side note, Laura, you need to watch Killing Eve if you want to see more of Fiona Shaw. She is fantastic in Killing Eve as Eve's Sandra Oh's kind of boss there, and what she goes through. Because if you just know her as the mom in Harry Potter, Dursley's mom in Harry Potter, that's a goofy character. She is quite serious and solid in certain films and certain TV shows. And I myself was very fortunate to take a workshop from her back at Florida State in 1998, I think. And she taught us there for a couple of hours. And it shocked me because I only knew her from Three Men and a Little Lady, when she played the goofy British woman who was trying to get with Ted Danson, I think. So I thought she was kind of, so when she came in and she was like, yeah, I played Hamlet on stage. I played Richard III as a woman. I was like, holy shit, what do you got here? And it was incredible to learn from her, because she's a damn good actress. So to see her later in life kind of being used all over the place in a number of projects, I think is so great to see. And that tells you talent always wins out. Talent always wins out, especially if you're British. Reynaldo says, yo, we think we're getting Tarkington. Yeah, are we going to get Grand Moff Tarkin in here somewhere, Laura? Do we see a CGI Grand Moff Tarkin, or do you think they're going to stay away from the Happy Valley on that? There's all human characters, or human actors rather, playing these characters.
I'm leaning towards no. I think that, that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth in Rogue One, and we're kind of inching up to that point in time. So I have a feeling we're going to focus on maybe these ISB characters and bringing them up and through the ranks, and maybe even seeing this character reporting to Qyburn. Like, I think that, she's obviously a lower rank than him. So I think you're probably closer to it, that he's going to be maybe playing that sort of Tarkin surrogate. But the other side of it is that, like, hey, the technology's improved. Let's do Tarkin again. Maybe it'll be better. Like, it's a good, I guess it's the dare that somebody's like, I bet we can do it better, and they'll do it again. But I don't think, I don't think they will. I think they're gonna stray away from it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, look, the Luke thing worked, but there were people who had issues with it. So I mean, like, the less you use it, I think the better. And certainly in Book of Boba Fett, it was better than it was when he showed up at the end of Mandalorian season 2, but that doesn't mean necessarily you should just keep trying it over and over again. Maybe maybe over the screen or something where it's easier to control. Ronaldo says Grand Moff Tarkin. Excuse me. Yeah, we knew who you meant, brother man. Tarkin. But yeah, keep sending in your Streamlabs and Super Chats as we go along. We're just finished the first hour of the show. We're going to maybe go another 20-30 minutes on the show. So if you want to send in your Streamlabs and Super Chats, do it now so we can answer your questions about this trailer and about the series here. And let's move to that, Laura. What do you anticipate we're going to see from this series that's really going to separate it from maybe some of the other stuff that we've seen here in Star Wars? What story do you think they're going to tell? Yeah, we heard migrant story. We've heard this idea of the fat cats. We've heard this idea of the rebellion. We've heard this idea of people being disenfranchised. But what do you think this story is overall going to be about and going to maybe show people as a message by the end of the 12 episodes of the first season?
I've kind of gotten into a little bit, but I think it's going to be a balance of two things. I think
Yeah.
it's really going to be this, political action spy thriller.
Yeah.
We haven't had a ton of like spy thriller stuff in Star Wars. Somebody brought up the Jason Bourne movies earlier. If we can bring some of those aspects into this series, great. The Jason Bourne movies are amazing. Yeah. So I think it's going to be that, but I think it's going to be just as much that refugee story and Cassian sort of having to figure out exactly who he is and where his place in this story is. I think Diego Luna was sort of talking about how Cassian's motivations early on in the series are not entirely pure, and they're pretty selfish. So he's obviously going to go through some stuff and then, eventually work his way into the rebellion and start living for something other than just his probably own revenge. But yeah. I think ultimately that's where we're going to end up, is that it's going to be this balance of, him trying to figure out who he is as our lead character and where his place is in the story, while also getting all of this political intrigue and Mon Mothma's side of it and fighting the powers that be from inside the house and outside.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think we're going to see also how this it's really going to be interesting how they walk the line, because I mean, one man's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, and so you kind of it's going to be interesting to see how they walk the line with Cassian Andor's character, because certainly when we see him in Rogue One, Laura, the first scene we have with him is him shooting an informant in the back to make sure he doesn't get caught by the Empire. So what is the construction of Cassian Andor as this series goes along, from this young kid who is disenfranchised by the Empire, climbing in through that hexagonal hallway or crawl space to see this technology? How does that put the zap in him and wow him, considering his people are using rudimentary tools just to build what they're building? Well, how does that change him? And then, of course, him becoming this kind of thief is what we're being told, and striking back at the Empire, kind of like Jyn doing her own thing as kind of a street urchin. And then Stellan Skarsgård changing him. And then what he becomes here in terms of the combo of his ruthlessness that he has developed to living on the street, living as a disenfranchised member of his people, and this bigger cause, this bigger noble cause. So this walking of the line with him is going to be very interesting, and how we vacillate between being support of what he's doing and also being a little bit taken aback by the methods with which he's doing it.
Exactly. And we're getting all of this, action between all of this interaction with him and Stellan Skarsgård in this first season. Right. And we learn eventually that Cassian Andor operates under the code name Fulcrum. So naturally, that's a lot of people are sort of speculating that Ahsoka is going to show up in this series. Yeah. And I just don't see that happening. I mean, the timeline of it would make sense for her to show up, sure. But I think season 2, maybe we'll get more of that story. And maybe we'll have Bail Organa sort of subbing in for the Stellan Skarsgård character that I don't think is going to survive season 1. But when we start pulling in, that fulcrum language, and it makes people think Ahsoka. I don't remember Rosario Dawson ever making a trip to London to film anything. I think if she was going to make an appearance, it was during COVID, nobody could travel anywhere. So
right.
I think we would have heard something about her being there or being on set. We never heard anything about that. Maybe she gets a shout out, a mention or something at some point. But if we're keeping all that code name intact. We're not talking about who's actually behind it. So I have a feeling if people are getting their hopes up for that, maybe take a step back and lower your expectations, because I think Ahsoka's story is going to stand on its own, and we don't necessarily need her in the show. We don't need her to come in and take over the way Luke kind of took over the Mandalorian in some scenes. I don't need that in the show. So I'm kind of hoping that they pump the brakes on that and don't get tempted into it.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question, Laura. Is this Chancellor Valorum? Is this Chancellor Valorum? What do you think? I'm seeing a lot of people speculating that this is the return of Terrence Stamp playing this character. So is that a possibility? They have the back and forth with Mon Mothma saying, you know, as long as I stay in irritation, they won't know what I'm doing. And he asks, what are you doing? Or is this another character possibly? Is this Tay Kolma? Who is this?
I was going to say, I think that I feel like I saw somebody say that, like, that's not actually Terrence Stamp. If it is, like, he's de-aged quite a bit. Like,
no, the actor is certainly not Terrence Stamp for sure. The actor was in Coupling on BBC, was just in The Crown as well. So, but I'm wondering if he's playing the character that Terrence Stamp played here in Star Wars. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think he's Valorum. I think, you know, that he's in this trailer. He's, you know, close to Tay Kolma. Yeah. I don't know if they would fool us in that way. It really does look a lot like him, though. But I feel like that character at this point in the story would look a lot older. I mean, the character alone, I mean, we're 32 years before the end, or before A New Hope, when we're in, you know, he already was sort of an older guy at that point. So, yeah, I don't think so. I think it would be, if they ever do need a young Finis Valorum, you got that actor right there that you could cast in the role, like right in front of you. Perfect. Yeah. But I don't think that that's him.
What about Adria Arjona? You know, we're seeing her teased and we're not getting too many indications of who she is and who she's playing and how she's coming into play. We see some intimate moments with her and Cassian. So is this a love in? Is this a, I don't want to say love inch because that devalues what she's doing, but is this a love story that might be being told amidst all these other stories that are being told here as a part of this series?
You know, I'm not opposed to bringing in a romance vibe to this show at some point. Like, if it is, it'll be a real small part of the story, I'm sure. But I love romance in Star Wars, so color me unopposed. But I think that her character, when we first learned of her casting, there were some people that were sort of suspecting that she might be playing Cassian's sister. We had learned early on that there was a casting call for a young boy and a young girl. We had assumed that that was Cassian and his younger sister. Honestly, I kind of think that maybe that younger sister might get taken out of this story early, and that might be part of his drive for revenge. So I'm not sure that Adria's character is going to be that. I definitely got that vibe of like, this is more of a romantic connection in the one scene where they're standing very close to each other. And just kind of that look. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm picking up on some romance here. That better not be his sister, because let's not go there again. Star Wars.
Not again.
Once is enough. You get one.
You get one. Especially because you didn't know it was going to blossom into other things. But yeah, I mean, I like seeing her here. I like the look she has. I like the ferocity she has here as well. That I think is going to be a nice element to this, getting the female point of view as a rebel, as a displaced person, as someone who's going against the Empire. And also, you know, we're getting Cassian's point of view. So I like that we're getting that as an element here as well. And then, of course, we'd be remiss not to mention who is the character that's playing, or who's the character that is Stellan Skarsgård's assistant, who calls him out and shows up. Yeah, what do we anticipate we're going to see from her, Laura, in this series?
That's a good question. She kind of seems like she might be like his aide. Might just be working for him. I'm not sure if there's much more to the relationship than that, but I mean, the fact that she has one of those last lines in the trailer of, you know, talking about how this is what revolution looks like. I'm like, oh, okay. So we know what side she's on. I think I think we can be pretty sure that maybe like, I'm like, did she bring him into the rebellion? Is he kind of bringing her? And she's like talking, I don't know. I'm
Right.
like, I also wonder, I'm like, is one of them going to turn on the other or have to
Mm.
turn on the other at some point if they're working in
Oof.
conjunction and he's kind of playing both sides? Like,
Yeah.
what's going to be the foil there? So
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I'm going to be very cautious about what I assume about her character because she seems a little hard to read. But
Yeah.
at that same time, that line, you know, she's got the not Fiona Shaw line, the version of this trailer at the end of this
Right.
trailer. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. What do you think? Do you have any suspicions about who or what she is?
Uh, I'm getting a college professor and who ended up with a student who had and they got together. That's what I'm seeing. Is like she was his teacher and he was her teacher and they kind of connected and then boom, they started a relationship. That's what it seems like to me when I'm watching it in the trailer. So I think that's a distinct possibility. Oh, Laura, I can say, oh, sorry, Laura, there you go. I think
I don't
that's
know what happened. Sorry.
what I was saying was that I sense that this is someone who was maybe she was his student or knew him as a colleague and then maybe they got together after that and they've been together ever since. And she knows like how to deal with his ridiculousness. And she's the one that's trying to keep him on task. So I sense that, and she's going to have, I think, a part to play in his section of the story that's really important for sure. And the other part of this is what is this situation? What is going on here? How are they working in cahoots together here? Laura, do you suspect that both Mon Mothma and Luthen are are doing this all for show? Or do you think both of them are operating behind the scenes without either one knowing that they're operating behind the scenes and so may have cross purposes in their approaches? Because Luthen obviously was Saw. I don't know if Mon Mothma would be happy about that. So as you mentioned, their division there, so in their points of views and their approaches to this situation. So do you anticipate that this is more politics between them that will get found out down the road? Or do you think Mon Mothma is too quick for that and they're both just kind of working together and putting on airs to fool the Empire in their interactions in front of them?
You know, her smile looks very fake in that scene. And one of the most interesting things I think that we can get in a show like this is an actor playing a character who is also acting. It's just there's a lot of layers there and it's
Yeah,
really fun to
for
watch
sure.
it play out. But I kind of get the vibe she's just like it's just a little bit too much cheese and that smile. And I think that's on purpose for the show, but it's yeah, little too much over the top there, which makes me think that she's, you know, this is her political mask that this character is wearing in this scene in particular. And he's got this very opulent robe on in this scene.
Yes.
We
And
haven't
his
seen
hair.
him wearing those. Yeah, we haven't seen
The
those
wig.
opulent clothes like in other parts of this trailer. So it's not clear if this is maybe earlier in the timeline, maybe it's a few years before our sort of main setting, or is he really playing both sides to that extreme? But I think if he's interacting with Saw and she's so against the way that Saw does things, she's not going to warm up to him, I think, real easy. That's going to probably take a little bit of push and pull if they're going to end up on the same team or figure out that they're on the same team at some point. It might be an interesting road to get there.
Yeah, for sure. Tushka sent in a stream live here. He says, so glad to catch you all live again. When do you think we will get the reprogramming of K2SO? Ooh, great question. There seems to be a lot of stories to build. So my guess would be the last episode or two. Much love. Hashtag sleeveless in Seattle. Oh, there you go. Okay. Laura, that's a great question. You know, they asked, you know, they mentioned this in Rogue One. So do you anticipate? I mean, Alan Tudyk said he is not in season 1, but that does not mean the robot. I mean, KTSO can't show up in season 1, maybe just not have any lines there. So is that a possibility? Is that maybe in the final episode we see K2SO pop up? Because we're getting a new droid, which I'll bring up in just a second, talk about that real quick. But yeah, what do you think? What's your answer to Tushka's question?
I think that that would be a really perfect like bookend to that end of the season to have that
Mm,
sort of because everybody who's watching the show knows who K2SO is and is in the same boat as me and is desperately missing him. And
yeah.
I'm hoping that when he does come into season 2, we'll bring a little maybe bring a little bit of lightness, a little bit more of that comic relief that he brought to Rogue One, which was really fun.
Yeah.
We're going to be maybe lacking that a little bit in this first season of the show. It might be a little bit darker, but I think, that finding him and finding that security droid and just laying him out on a table somewhere and someone just being like, all right, now what? Like, it would just be a great way to end this season and to figure out exactly how they got to the point where like they reprogrammed him and he was still this like sarcastic asshole. I'm like, what level degree did we have to tone that down? Like, did that start at a higher level? And they're like, no, let's bring it down to like a 5. Like it'll be really fun to watch how he actually does come into this story. But I think ending it with
Yeah.
season 1 with him would be a great move.
I agree. And in some way, kind of working out for Andor. But this is the droid there that we're going to be getting. I have shades. And this is B2 Emo. I love this called the B2 Emo. It's so good. B2. You can't B2 Emo, or you can B2 Emo. But I love the name for this droid. But let me throw something else out there for you older folks who, or maybe some of you younger folks, maybe who have had this film passed on to them in previous generations. This feels like Vincent, the droid from the black hole. If you guys remember that old 1980s Disney sci-fi film with Maximilian Schell and Yvette Mimieux and Anthony Perkins and oh god, he just recently passed away. He was reborn by Tarantino. I forget the actor's name. Can you tell I'm retired? But yeah, this I mean, this droid looks like that droid and that design, and that is still under the Disney banner. So, and what do you think about this, Laura? What do you think about that droid? What do you think the purpose that droid is going to serve here in this series? Because we see a great shot of it in the trailer, and it's a cool shot. And Molly Damon, friend of the show, apparently already got it in Lego and built it. So, I mean, that's pretty cool to see that they want this to happen for sure.
I remember some of the images of the Lego figure leaking out before Comic-Con and
Right.
not having any idea what this droid could possibly be, but he had just a little cameo in the trailer that was perfect. We get just a little noise that I was like, oh, this is a cute droid. This is meant to be cute. Because I wasn't sure, like, is this droid going to talk? Is it going to be a binary R2 situation, BB-8 situation? But when Alice and I were talking about Out on Force Toast, her assumption was that this character was going to be voiced by some sort of like punk music band leader. I don't know if it would be like Pete Wentz with the side swipe bangs, doing the voicing the emo droid. I don't know, but it would have, what could have been. I don't think he's going to talk. I think he's just got that cute little beeping thing going on, but he's awfully cute. Like I truly am not sure what to expect, but he looks like a very cute little fire hydrant.
Yeah, I want to bring this up because and I misspoke here. It's Vincent is the newer one. Bob is the one that I'm comparing it to. So let me see if I can bring this up and see if you guys think I'm crazy or if I might be right. So Bob is the one on. I mean, look at it. I don't know if I'm necessarily wrong. There are shades here. You know,
Yeah,
get the eye
the influence is there.
The influence is there. I sense that the influence is there for sure. So. But I like it. I'm looking forward to it. This is for you kids out there. Go see Black Hole is so good. It's on Disney Plus. Watch it to enjoy some old sci-fi there. That's damn good. So yeah, just kind of comparing the two for sure. But I don't think anyone's going to top Chopper. Do you, Laura? I mean, Chopper's.
And level 2 training's comment here is Chopper would kill this little guy in 3 seconds. I'm dying. 100% accurate.
Probably.
Nailed it.
For sure. Oh yeah, thank you, Charlie, saying Black Hole spot on, Rocha. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's comparisons there I think you can make for sure. Yeah, so we shall see. All right, Laura, is there anything more that we haven't touched on here when it comes to this trailer and maybe what we predict might be happening this season? Do you want to see a Palpatine? I mean, do you want to see any of the legacy characters? I mean, I feel like me personally, I'd be happy if we don't see anybody from the legacy characters that we've gotten here popping up in all these different Star Wars. If this could be just its own thing, I would be fine with it, even though we did have Vader pop up at the end of Rogue One and Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin in CGI form. So that is possible, but I'd be quite happy if they didn't. What do you anticipate?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't
Yeah.
need it. I don't think the show needs it. I don't think it has room for it, honestly. From the trailer, I'm like, there's a lot happening in this show, I think. And we get 12 episodes, thank goodness. But
Yes.
I wasn't expecting to see Ian McDiarmid pop up in Kenobi, and then all of a sudden
Oh,
he was just there. I was like, I didn't even consider that to be a possibility. I had no
yeah.
idea that was even coming until there he was. And I don't necessarily need him in this. I would be surprised though if he doesn't. If we're getting all of that action
Oh,
happening in the
good
Senate
point.
scenes on Coruscant,
Right.
I'm like, I mean, maybe he's sent somebody as his proxy to fill in for him, but they talked a lot about how the Empire or the Imperial Senate was basically useless. It was like
Yeah.
just kind of there for show in those days of the rebellion. So I would think that he would have to be the driving force behind all of it, so we'd have to show him. But I don't know. I don't need it. If he shows up in hologram form like he did in Kenobi, I'd be fine with that. But I don't need more than that.
Do you anticipate we'll get cameos in the Senate? Do you think we'll get like the Yoda species? Do you think we'll get
like ET?
Yeah, like we're gonna get. God, I hope. No, I don't want to see ET in Andor.
Yes, you do. You want ET?
Yeah.
I want ET. I want it to be canon. No.
What about Gungans? Do we see this in the Senate? Where is? I mean, is this possible here? Do we see anything that might be kind of a surprise for us to see in the Senate, or do you think it's going to be pretty clear that it's just going to stick to the main characters and the main storylines? They're not going to stunt.
12 episodes, we got a lot of time and a lot of content to cover. Like, if we're going to spend a good amount of time with Mon Mothma, we're going to have to see other senators in the background at some point. She can't be front and center the whole time. So I wonder how much we're going to get of Bail Organa, if anything.
Yeah, good question.
I have a hard time. I have a hard time like reconciling watching a Star Wars that's got a lot of Mon Mothma and no Bail Organa. Like it just there's something missing there that I think that they might need to fill in. Jar Jar would be, I mean, like this.
Yeah, you guys read through me. Level 2, he's right. I paused to not mention Jar Jar. You're right.
It was, if we get a Naboo senator and is it a Gungan? That is a very good question. I mean, we do have a Gungan to thank for why Palpatine got emergency powers in the first place. He might feel some sense of loyalty to the Gungans. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. He might make it so.
Oh my God, make it so. We shall see. Tushka saying Jar Jar redemption tour. No. Stop it. No, let's move on. I don't want anything to do with that at all. Let's see if there's anything more that we haven't touched on that we should hit. Anything that I'm missing here? I know there are a couple other actors that appeared in the trailer, but there's not much to say about them since there really hasn't been much written about the role they might be playing in this. And we do see a member of Maz Kanata's species there at the end. So
well, Maz Kanata only had 2 arms and that character had 4. So I don't, but he did look an awfully lot like a cross between Mon Mothma and like Ochi of Bastoon. He had a little bit of that look to him too. And we're not sure what species Ochi was because he was just messed up. But it was, it'll be, I'm not sure what was happening in that scene at all. It looked like that character was getting like a spinal tap maybe or something. Not pleasant, but at least he was out. So that's something.
Yeah, for sure. And Kyle Solar is in the trailer as well, but I don't know too much about the character that he's going to be playing. So we haven't heard anything about that. Some fans apparently thought it was Sam Witwer. But no, Sam's a little bit older. I hate to break it to people, but he looked like a younger version of Sam Witwer for sure, but no, this is Kyle Solar.
We talked about how old Cassian is and how old Diego Luna is. I wouldn't be, come on. They could have done it. They could have pulled it off.
I guess they could have de-aged him in some way, but yeah, I mean, no offense to Sam, who I really love and enjoy, but no, we're not seeing Kenobi, right? We're not seeing any of those people crossing over. I just keep it singularly what it is. Let it tell its story.
No, I mean, I've talked about it before. Like, I would love to see a spin-off series of Kenobi with the Path and diving more into that. And that seems like a different story from this. And I don't know if we're going to talk about or see any Jedi, any Force
I was just
usage
gonna ask it.
in
It's a
this
final
show at
question.
all.
Okay.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if we don't see it at all in this show.
Yeah.
I think that this show is going to be, it's going to be our Solo. It's going to be focusing on other things. There won't be any Jedi even probably mentioned, because I mean, at this point in the story, they're not supposed to be around anyway. And I think that we've got enough other characters to focus on in this story that I don't know if we need to pull that into it. What do you think?
Any chance we? No, I would be surprised if we see a Force user. I would be surprised if we see a Jedi because the trailer, both trailers, the teaser and the official one, make it very clear that this is a ground-based Star Wars that is gritty, that is dealing with a migrant story, that is dealing with this rebellion versus the Empire in a very, how can I say this, tactile way. It's not dealing with it in a fantastical way. So I anticipate that we're not going to get that. And I hope we don't, to be honest with you, because I think one of the things that makes Rogue One stand out so well is that they're all relying on their wits, the plans that they've laid out militarily in certain situations. And even Krennic only uses a blaster. Krennic's not using any kind of force. Tarkin's not using any kind of force. And I love that. That keeps it kind of ground-based and real. And so I hope that follows what we're going to see here. Maybe they'll speak about it. I wouldn't be surprised if they speak about the Jedi in a way of like, oh yeah, I remember them. Yeah. You know, like the sisters did in Clone Wars, the most recent season, where it's like, you guys are up there fighting. We're down here dealing with the ramifications of y'all's lofty philosophical battles. So I like that. Oh, sorry. We got ourselves a troll in here. I apologize. Let me block it. Yeah. So, I would hope that we don't, Laura, to be honest with you.
I mean, I think you're right though. Getting a mention, like if we're going to be on Jeddah, we might get a mention of it. They might throw it out there.
I mean, I wouldn't mind going into the temple and seeing what the temple has and seeing that. That's kind of interesting. That's a different approach, right?
Yeah. What happened to the Kyber temple before the Empire destroyed it? I would like to see that too.
Exactly. Reynaldo says, do we get even a whisper? Yeah, maybe a whisper, maybe. But I can't imagine.
Yeah, I'd accept that. The thing that really struck me when I was watching both the teaser and this trailer was that, like, I mean, besides like the spaceship or like the Star Destroyer kind of overhead, there is not a ton of like Star Wars vibes. Like if you weren't a Star Wars fan and you watched this trailer, you might not know it's Star Wars if they didn't have that title card.
Great point.
That popped up there.
That's it just
kind of looks like a spy thriller.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, there you go. Let's wrap it up there. We've gone, we got almost at 90 minutes, so let's wrap it up there. We don't want to go too long. We appreciate you all joining us live here on the Jedi Way. There's 100 of you joining us right now. Please remember to hit a like on this video right now. Move that cursor over, hit that thumbs up button. It takes you 2 seconds to do so. We'd appreciate it madly if you're watching it later. Leave a comment down below, as well as leaving like, what do you think? What do you want to see from this season? What do you think about what we said and what we speculated that we might be getting, who these characters might be? Or do you want to see Jedi? Do you not want to see Jedi? Do you want to see any legacy characters? Let us know all of that. How did the trailer work for you? Whether you liked it or didn't like it, let us know. Be constructive, be respectful, but let us know down there in the comments section below as well. Thanks to everybody who joined us. Great lively chat. So much fun. Laura, where can they find? Always good. I haven't seen you in so long. It's great to see you and have a fun conversation about Star Wars, Laura. Where can they find you and everything you got going on right now?
Yeah, it was amazing to catch up, and this was a great occasion to finally get back together and like get a discussion in about this amazing trailer. I'm excited. Very much looking forward to Cassian premiering on Disney Plus on September 21st. RIP to all of the Star Wars fans that are staying up late to watch all 3 episodes that night. I am so sorry you have anything to do on Thursday, September 22nd. That's going to be a rough day for you, even if the episodes are only 30 minutes long, which I'm hoping they're longer than that, but we'll see. If you want to come find me on Twitter, my handle is shutup_Laura. The show that I host with my friend Alice is called Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, and you can find that show on Twitter at Force Toast Pod. And recently, I joined my friend Odie to discuss the Apple TV Plus series Ted Lasso through the lens of Star Wars, and it was a really fun discussion panel, so you can find a link to that in my Twitter feed. And if you're in Chicago, I'll be at C2E2 this weekend, so I might see you there.
There you go. Right. Nice. Dave Hornack. Sorry, Dave, I skipped your super chat. Let me read it real quick. John, love your channel and content. Keep it up. Love this show. And you both always have great viewpoints together. Is it just me, or is Cassian's accent and voice just effing awesome in the narration? Can't wait. Laura, would you like to address this first?
It is 100% awesome. The fact that we have like Stellan Skarsgård's weird accent, him calling it Cassian Andor, it's just so funny. And then yeah, the way that Diego Luna speaks in this show is just so great, because we don't get a ton of that like Latino accent from Din Djarin, or even, you know, it's just really refreshing. It's nice. Yeah, we didn't get it from Oscar Isaac either, so it's nice that he's bringing that to the Star Wars universe, and it's canonized. That and the Boston accent, here for it.
Fair enough.
I'm not here for the Boston.
I was not a fan of that. Yeah, but yeah, no, I like. Yeah, you're right. He's the perfect one to do it. Just like he was perfect in the trailers for Rogue One, when we were first being introduced to the Cassian Andor character, and of course how great he was in the actual film. So to have him come back and have more time with him, play with it more and do whatever, I'm a big fan of it, and I love Diego Luna as an actor. And so to see him kind of leading this thing and lending his voice in such interesting ways to what's happening in this series, and the importance of what's happening here, and the real world implications of it, as well as himself, someone who is from Mexico. I love that. So it's, so much about this is so great. He brings the right weight and, dare I say, gravitas to this role and to this part that I think is going to be fun to see for sure. All right, well, there you go. Thank you all so much for joining us. As for me, you can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, The Outlaw Nation on Twitch. Hey, Lightyear came out on Disney Plus, so I may do a viewing on Twitch of it tomorrow if you want to join me. I'm trying to keep it chill this week. I've had a bit of a rough week, so I'm trying to keep it chill, not do too much content. But if you want to hang out with me and watch Lightyear tomorrow, look for my notice and announcement of that as well. The Hot Mic might be going live tomorrow at 6 p.m. P to talk about all the madness going on with Batgirl and DC and WB and all that craziness. So look out for that. 6 p.m. PT is what we're thinking right now, but all depends on Jeff's schedule, if he can get out of what he's doing in time. And remember, that earnings call is going to be tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of news that's breaking on the WB DC side of things to add to what we already know from the Batgirl situation for sure. So look for that as well. If you're going to see Bullet Train this weekend, my review is up, and I will be doing a review for Prey, the Predator prequel that is going to be out on Hulu on Friday. So look for that. And of course, the Sandman, the Geek Buddies will be talking about that one as well. And maybe, just maybe, we can convince Laura Kelly to come on the Geek Buddies and review Andor throughout this season. We shall see. I know Laura's busy. We shall see if we can talk her into it.
That could be fun. I could be down for that.
All right. I love it. But thank you all so much. Remember to subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that bell button so you see we're dropping all the content we do on here. And if you're part of the Patreon or want to join the Patreon, head on over there, patreon.com/John Rocha. See all the multiple tiers you can be a part of. All right. This one drops 3 episodes, September 21st. Put it on your calendar. Get ready. We're about to go on a hell of a ride for 12 episodes of this first season, and I can't wait for it to get started. I'll talk to you all soon. Laura and I, what do we say here at the end of the Jedi Way here, Laura?
We say that until next time, remember, your focus determines your reality.